Hello, this is Lisa Russick
And
and
Donna Murphy.
Donna Murphy, and we have Georgia with us today. And this is the podcast We're All Psychic. Georgia, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everybody. It's a joy to be here.
We are so happy to have you. And first of all, we do have a question for you right off the bat. Do you
Yes.
think we're all psychic?
Well, this is something that I would compare to being Are We All Musicians? So everyone can play the chopsticks, only some people can play piano concerto. And our capacity to be psychic is determined by a kind of somewhere on the spectrum of interest. Like, I think talents can all be developed. Like, as a musician, you can develop your talent, but you have to also have an interest. So if you are incarnate with the interest, and I'm sure anyone who's watching a show called We Are All Psychic probably has the interest.
Yeah.
And you may need to just apply yourself if you don't feel like you're naturally gifted. So I'm sure you can play the chopsticks. And if you apply yourself, you can train your brain and the system that we have within us that generates what we would call psychic experience to become more enhanced, so you can become better and better. But some people incarnate with a much more open, their quote unquote like psychic genius is already more open.
Genius. Yeah, like they're born really super psychic. Yeah.
Super psychic. Like the system is set up well.
I do think it's a skill, like you're saying.
Skill. That's what I would say. It's a skill that can be developed, and it has. And also, that really leads into the question is, what is psychic abilities? Because it really is a capacity that our brain has to interpret signals that generally lie outside of the physical senses. So once you kind of really understand it on a nuts and bolt level as a piece of functionality that can be trained into the brain, then you can really, really, really develop it. Yeah.
Yes, it's absolutely. You're right. I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
Almost 100%. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. What about you, Donna? Pretty good answer, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a great answer. And that's been my experience, not only personally, but as I've watched other people that I've either known who are already maybe very well developed.
Yeah.
Whether that's, again, some combination of what you described, an innate skill, and then interest and I'll call it study for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But also people who were looking to develop more of their natural gifts, such as they were, or even to determine what their natural gifts were.
And it really is like feeding into the kind of shift of consciousness that's going on the planet right now anyway, because we are, as a collective, developing that capacity more, because it actually leads us into experiencing life in a new bandwidth of creation. So, I mean, I can totally deep dive on this because this is the next that we've been doing.
We can keep going if you like. That's you have it all. Like listeners and watchers, she is a comedian. I just want to let you know that she's hysterical, but not yet. Hysterical later, not in the crazy way, but in a funny way.
Yeah. My former before I actually, so I personally had a what you would call a spiritual event, a kind of knock you to the floor spiritual event, and I would have called myself intuitive before that and kind of sensitive and stuff like that. But once I had this event where my sort of chakra system and my pineal gland was blasted open, and I developed.
Tell us about that
channel.
I got to hear about that.
Where to begin? So I think, speaking about natural interest, curiosity, as a child, I had invisible friends. So I kind of understand that I was probably channeling or having some kind of like level of like multidimensional interaction when I was communicating with my invisible friend. And then it got shut down. Then I was basically living life, but I was always curious. Like from 15, I learned about like reading palms, and I would have experiences reading palms where I'd get like a knowingness, even though essentially I was just reading the lines, like the information of the lines. And then I started to learn tarot cards, but none of these things was I really getting information to a level of detail that I couldn't possibly know, right? So anyway, cut a long story short, I moved to America, I became a stand-up comedian, and that world was like super, super challenging. And so then I was doing a lot of personal development work and a lot of I was in like kind of goddess group, and I was starting to get attuned more to energy itself. I also started to listen to a lot of Abraham Hicks. And a friend of mine was communicating, had discovered this ability to communicate to this spirit guides through this thing called a Pathfinder, which is kind of like a shamanistic talking board, kind of like a Ouija board, but it was all in the light. And she could sit there and this thing would spin around and really fast and just spell out all this spirit dictation. And through that, the energies were saying, we can give you a lot more information if you let us speak through you. So we were like, oh my God, because we knew about Abraham Hicks. I'm sure you are familiar. And we had actually gone to see Abraham Hicks, and I had actually been called up from the audience to speak to Abraham. And I think there was kind of a download that happened in that moment. So eventually what happened was, through the board, the guides were saying, we want to speak through you. And I thought that she was going to start channeling. So I was like, yeah, do it, let it happen. Cool, come on. And then we sat down one day and I would always sit there like the spirit secretary and write out this spirit dictation that would come through the board. And it started spelling out, masses of energy here. You're going to feel a little weird. You might make some strange noises, but, we're here to, do something. And I'm writing this out. And suddenly I just felt super weird, went into like this instant trance and just went, oh my God, I think it's happening to me. And this energy just poured in like an ocean, and the consciousness just started speaking through me. And they were like, we're here, and, we're here to help the planet, and you're going to help us. But I think because I was a stand-up comedian, my throat chakra was already open, like I was good at improvising, good at being, I don't have a lot of stuff in the way between.
Yeah, I don't have much of a filter either. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So I was able to do that. Well, she was really good at painting. So I think through her hands, the energy could channel. But for me, they were all able to just blast through the throat. And I had been doing stuff leading up to it, but I didn't have any anticipation of it. And therefore, I don't think I had any resistance to
no
it.
expectation of how it might happen, really.
Yeah, that's right. I was just like, oh my God, it's really cool. And part of it was like, wow, I wish something like that would happen to me. And then it did.
Yeah, it did. You wished for it?
There it was.
Believe manifest. But it was very casual in the way I was intending for it, and I think because of that, I had less of my ego in the way. But I was really working through a lot of that, through all these hardships I was going through at the Comedy Store. And also, I should also add into that story that a week before that event had happened, I had actually had to make the decision to stop going to the Comedy Store in LA because it was such a toxic environment, and I was being kind of harassed.
When you start working with energy, I can't be like, the more I work with, the longer I'm involved in this field and doing the podcast and living alone and not watching television. I mean, I feel very much saturated in the work, in the energy work, and I love it. I have like nowhere else I'd rather be, but it does get kind of isolating sometimes because a toxic environment is really toxic feeling,
Yeah, well, and now I'm in a different world, but that kind of taught me that I had to leave one thing, even though I was fighting to stay there out of principle, because I didn't want these sort of mean boys to like drum me out of town. Yeah. And they kind of won on that front. But then a week later, this other thing happened. And that club is actually super haunted because it used to be a like a mob hangout, and they used to do like execution style murders there and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's the Comedy Store on Sunset Strip, so it's very famous comedy club.
Very famous.
Yeah, and at that time, it was a particularly dark time. So I only really went back a couple of times after that event. And then after I got blasted open, I could feel this thick soup of energy that was there. And it made a lot of sense why I had to leave it before I could have this big opening actually happen. So I think, although it was like the mean boys drumming me out of town, I think it was also my spirit guides being like, get out of here before we've got the next thing, about to happen for you.
So what did you decide to do? Like when that channeling happened, is that so? Apparently you can channel, right? That's only happened
That's
to
my major ability that people know me for. Yeah.
Yeah, I work as a medium, and I have had a spirit come in one time. One time they were just, I was doing a reading on the phone, and they're just like, I can do this real quick. And I'd been thinking about channeling a lot, though. And on my mind, we have a regular podcast guest who comes on and channels Albert Einstein. And I'm like, I've always been on the fence about letting him in, because I don't know what it's like yet. And this one just talked me into it, and they came in, but I was still in there, and they just
Yeah. Like I'm a conscious
for it
channel,
any time. Yeah.
so I've never been like
yeah.
not there. It's more like if you've ever been hypnotized. I recall in a similar way the
It
amount
does
of
feel like what I've never been hypnotized, but that's how I imagine it would feel. Yeah.
it's like
And I have been hypnotized, so I know that feeling of presence.
yes.
You're not present, and you're not asleep.
Yeah. And it's an energetic experience
Mhm.
for me, because that's also so getting back to what we were talking about, psychic abilities, all of this stuff that we're talking about is consciousness that's currently lying outside of the realm of our physical senses. So it's all out there, everything, just like this beautiful backdrop I have here. It's all out there. It's all intelligence. It's all consciousness. And what we experience as reality is the portion of that consciousness that we focus on. So the human biological system is designed to process information primarily from the physical senses. So the frequencies, whatever you want to call it, the information that we pick up with our eyes, ears, touch, taste, smell, is what our brain takes in and puts together as our experience. And really every experience that we have is packaged by our brain. So if your brain can't put it together, you don't experience it. So outside of what our these like more like gross mechanisms, for want of a better word, not gross, but funky, these gross mechanisms can pick up. There's all this other information out there, and as you and the pineal gland this is what my guides have shared with me, has 12 energetic connection points. It's the multidimensional processor of the brain. And depending on how partially or fully those connection points are opening, that's going to determine what information you can receive, even let into your brain, for your brain to start to learn and start to put together as the package of experience that we have. So when you're opening up psychically, clairvoyantly, whatever it is, essentially what's happening is that those connection points are opening. So most people in the 3D have 1 to 2 of those connection points open, whereas somebody who's got an ability such as yourself might have 4 or 5 or 6 of those connection points partially or fully open. And what's happening as a collective now is we're moving up the scale. So part of the attraction to psychedelics, for example, is that they are a way that the connection points can be open, so the brain can start to pick up this extra dimensional energy and start to learn it and put it together. And as we do that, we start to expand our experience of life itself. So what is a psychic experience now becomes more of just like a normal experience for people. And those people who have maybe 4 or 5 of these connection points are open, they might start getting more like 8 or 9 of those connection points open. We don't have all of them open, otherwise we just wouldn't exist.
There wouldn't be a point.
Well, we literally wouldn't exist, because we'd just be back in experiencing everything as the all consciousness at that point. So that's kind of like how it works. Once you understand that, you can intend it.
Do all 12 of them come up together? Is that like...
What's that?
Would all 12 of them kind of be activated or active when you die? Or
yeah, I would say that's probably part of the death process. It's all opens up, and then this illusion disappears, because the egoic framework is what's creating resistance to us experiencing all of that at once.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So we live like in a, it's kind of selected reality based on that. And the human collective also, this is, by the way, this isn't me just saying this is what my guides have been revealing over the last 20 years since I've had my event. as a human collective, there's kind of a ceiling on that as well. And as we're going through that shifting consciousness, every now and then that ceiling gets raised. So what that means is more of that frequency that's lying outside of our typical experience is actually allowed to come into the collective human paradigm. And then individually, people start to open up more of that functionality and start to put that new reality together that way.
I like that. And it seems catching. It seems like when people are around other people who, let's say they have more of those points open, their points will open.
Absolutely, because it's a frequency entrainment as well. Yeah.
And like I work in a shop. We both work on a platform called Everclear, which is like a phone chat line. And I also work in a metaphysical shop part-time in Nashville. And I can definitely see that working in the shop,
Yeah, totally. And also, I'm show you before, like quite a few years ago, I worked at this place, Quest Bookstore in New York, which is the Theosophical Society, and I did the readings there. And that just doing hundreds of like tarot readings is, trains your brain as well. But don't you also notice that it's because through that I don't really call myself a medium because it's not my strength, but I would have mediumship experiences doing the readings just spontaneously. But I realize it's also the connection between the person I'm reading for and their connection. It isn't all on me. It's kind of a three-way conversation at that point.
Open up and let you in to do that conversation of whatever they need.
Yeah.
Sometimes their guides won't, but they'll be like, they're not ready to hear that. It's kind of the information.
Yeah. And if they don't have the connection or if they're having, whatever.
It makes sense to them if you say it that way or something like that would come through, And and also I don't know why I feel like throwing this out there, but as I aged, I got better at readings because of life experience,
Sure, right. Because you have more
marriages and stuff like that. So I had experiences, whereas when I was 27 and didn't have any real life experience much, I was pretty sheltered.
I feel like too that what would send somebody to me for a reading, like if a guide is like, because a lot of times when I'd have that more mediumship experience, I would just come and sit down and be like, I don't know why I'm here, actually. I just had a feeling I had to come in today. And I really feel it's because whoever's trying to communicate to them can see that I have within my paradigm enough touch points that they can use to communicate to me that I'll be able to get the message across to them. Like I had one woman, this was actually, I used to work on Keen as well. And I had one woman who called up and we started doing this reading and I started getting all these black and white movie references and I'm talking to her and I'm like, I'm seeing all these black and white movie references and, it's all very romantic. And then she said, and then there was a particular name that I was getting through. At first I thought it might be a romantic reference, but, afterwards, then she finally told me that her and her grandma, who was actually trying to communicate, used to sit and watch black and white movies together. And because as a child, I watched hundreds of black and white movies, I had the reference point for this one particular movie that she had put on at that time, which was The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. Like she'd sat to watch a black and white movie and got prompt to dial a psychic, basically, got me. And the name that she was getting, that I was getting to give her, was the name of the lead actor in The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, which at the time I used to know what the name is. I've actually forgotten what it was. But I think...
I don't know either.
And so
I can't remember, but I have seen the movie many times.
Yeah, Rex Harrison. That's what it was. I was getting Harrison. I'm like, do you live near Harrisburg or Harrison? I'm getting this name Harrison.
Harrison Street.
Harrison Street. Something. You're trying to get the information through a fishbowl, basically. And that was the movie she had sat down to watch when she got the prompt to call a psychic. but not everybody's going to have that information about the case of Mrs. Muir to be able to put that together. So I feel like whoever's trying to get through is also looking like, what's in my database of life experience that they can use to give the hints to get across some kind of message or signal. So more life experience means there's more of those kind of little details.
What stuff means when you see it in your head, in your inner eye. My guys will show me stuff like way in the future, and I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm like, what were you about to say, Donna? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that I actually think when someone, consults, when someone comes for a reading, even if it doesn't involve the mediumistic connection, that it's still that why did they choose me at that particular time on that particular day, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I still feel that it's because even if it's their own, whatever you want to say, guides, angels, whatever, kind of steering them to where they can get what they need, what they need to hear, what they need to know, that whatever it is that I particularly have to offer, not that I'm obviously not the best reader on the planet or any of that kind of stuff. It's not about any of that. It's, can they make that connection with me in that moment for what they need?
And it's just like everything, it's like a vibrational alignment. The alignment. You've got enough base information in her head to get this get this across. Because I'm sure, sometimes you do readings and it does just feel a little, it's not like as woo-woo magical, but it feels a little bit more like a life coaching session for somebody. But you have that understanding of this kind of part of personal development that person may need to hear right now. And then sometimes it's just that ability to make that alignment with somebody's guides them, and they've already set the alignment up. It actually changed the way I started readings too, when I started putting that together myself, that it was this sort of three-way conversation, that we needed to also give permission to open up those gateways and to share that space. It also took a lot of pressure off me that when and this is something I would like to share with your viewers, is because people talk about these things as being gifts, there's sort of this pressure that it has to be this omnipresent power that you can do everything and prove to everybody this is real. And it really isn't. It's something that falls.
We have a podcast called that. Psychics.
Do you have a podcast called what?
We have an episode called "Psychics Don't Know Everything."
Yeah, totally,
that's so true. It's so true.
Around like I know
section. It's like a Venn diagram, what I know, what they want to get across. And it's just that section in the middle where we're meeting.
Yeah.
And make the best alignment. And once I accepted that more, it took a lot of pressure off me to feel like I needed to live up to these ideas. And even when I do channeling sessions, I have a pretty broad range of information and consciousness that I can channel, because I've had a lot of my own ego cracked and broken many times over, so I can let more in. But I always give people that thing. Listen, it's not an omnipotent psychic experience where I don't know everything about you. It just doesn't work that way.
It's hard to explain with the best way. Like this podcast shows me with every guest that every single person we've had on here who works with energy, either professionally or on their own as a spiritual practice, they do readings. Every single person's very unique how they will offer a reading, if they're doing energy work or healing or anything. It's just as independent as the healing will feel differently. If I receive Reiki from you and Donna, the Reiki will feel the same, but the intensity might be different.
Yeah, totally.
Things that get healed might be different, stuff like that. Because you're different people, and then you target like for me, and let's say we're both giving Donna Reiki, Georgia. So I give Donna Reiki, and I can't get something out of her heart chakra, but I cleared out her sacral. And you go next, and you're like, there's this huge hole in her heart, big thing in her heart, and it just has to go, and you're able to just boop boop.
Yeah, because we all have a kind of specialty, and I think that comes from our life experience. What did I have to heal within myself? Once you've healed something within yourself, you kind of hold the keys of that healing within your energetic field as well. And, even a lot of people think, oh, a lot of what we work with now is this concept of embodiment as well, that whatever we have resolved or whatever I've worked with other clients, it's now held in a kind of embodied field. So even watching shows like this, there's codes being transmitted.
Yes.
There's it doesn't have to be specifically like, well, by the power of my Reiki, it's just an embodied frequency. Just like I said, when I
By the power of Reiki.
When I sat with Abraham Hicks, I understand clearly now that I was receiving a download that was cracking my consciousness at that time in a non-linear, non-verbalized way that now, and a lot of people, for example, who are going to become a channel get really obsessed with channeled material before they actually start opening it up to themselves, or whatever you're kind of getting obsessed with. We call it fanning, because you're fanning up.
Oh, there's a word for it. Okay,
I like that. Yeah.
Frequency activate now. I'm fanning on it because the frequency is activating me now. Like whatever I'm trying to embody, I'll fan on something, and then it will start to activate those frequencies and capacities within me, and help change the alignments of my energetic system, my neural pathways. For people who want to develop their psychic abilities, exposure to frequencies is the best way you can do it. Like literally watch these shows, listen to recordings of channeled material, because that's actually helping your brain and your neural pathways develop the capacity to discern frequencies and turn it into experience. If you're never exposed to frequencies, your brain can't really learn it.
Yeah, you're right. It's really, I agree. That you can it's like empaths, actors, musicians. I think the greatest empaths because they can project their actual emotions out to a crowd, and the crowd can mirror. And then they mirror it back to them.
Yes, yeah. I actually have a boot camp about that for musicians and stuff called Fan.
Cool.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of idea of like brainstorm. I mean, we think the same. Seems like not the same, but we think very similarly on these topics. Like we have the same.
Yeah, because it's about making it, for me, like it's about taking the woo-woo and turning it more into like something that can be conceptually understood as quite a logical process once you understand the mechanisms behind it.
It is. It really makes sense that we're all psychic. We all use energy. We all work with it. There's a spiritual body.
Yeah.
It's just because we haven't had it for the last 2,000 years, or probably everywhere. We don't know what's happened in the last 2,000 years, really. We just know what's happened in our lifetime, maybe.
Yes, kind of. And we don't know.
In all the little nooks and crannies all over the earth, people have always practiced energy work. If it hasn't been accepted in their culture or whatever, it's always we've heard of the witches burning. Why were they burning? Why were they happening? Because they. Stuff like that.
Because they got the power, and then people like that.
So, what was when you transitioned from comedian to being a psychic? Like, what did that feel like? How did you go about that? How did that happen?
Yeah, so honestly, after I had this big event, so I'd left the Comedy Store. A week later, I had this big event, and it was with a friend of mine, and I didn't really understand that the channeling that had happened with her, because it had always sort of been her with the board. I didn't know that she lived in San Diego. I was living in LA.
You were expecting her to be like better at it, or being
more like that she was the touchstone and that the board was the touchstone. Okay. And so when I went back to LA, then things started happening where I started feeling the energies come in by myself, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, don't I need Lisa to do this? And she and I kind of went through a process, because we were very like, is this even happening? I was like, oh, I've had kind of, am I just seeking attention through this? Because I had to leave this big opportunity, be at the Comedy Store. Am I now just looking for attention and try and make something special about myself by saying I'm channeling? Your mind is kind of going crazy because it's trying to now integrate one reality with another. And so there's a real process of dissembling what has been in resistance to that ability before and processing stuff. So actually, so it actually made like the highs much higher and the lows much lower, because also when you start to open up and receive those high frequencies come in, it's also hitting within you everything that's in resistance to that, so you can process that out. And so any opening of of your psychic abilities. And this is why people resist it a lot, even though they might want it. They're not prepared, and the nervous system doesn't want you to go through the kind of egoic chaos that actually happens once you start opening up, because our nervous system is designed to keep us in a set reality that we comprehend, so it can keep us safe within that set reality. Then you have this opening and your reality is now something else, so you have this kind of threshold resistance you have to really work through. And I didn't really know all of this. There wasn't really, at that time, there was like Abraham Hicks, there was Seth, there wasn't much channeling going on compared to now, so there wasn't a lot of resources to learn how to navigate this process in the same way that there is now, I think. But yeah, I had to keep doing like a lot of work. And I had a friend who lived in LA, and she was like, wow, this is great. And I used to just go over to her house, and she'd be like, just let them in, and I would let the energy in. And sometimes there was no speaking, but they would just kind of blast this energy in. And what I realized that was the part of the entraining me to the frequencies. I couldn't yet speak it, but they were exposing me to the energy, and then like a week later I could channel a little bit more. And that's even happens today when a new energy is coming in for me to channel. The first time it might come in, I may not actually be able to verbally channel it, but I'm basically holding the frequency field for it to come in. We've opened the gateway, and maybe the next time I channel it, I'll be able to verbally interpret it more, because my brain and pineal gland have had a time to kind of integrate that frequency. But there's a lot of trial and error. That's the other thing I would like to share with people is when people are learning to open up, they should be prepared to be wrong as well as right, because it's the getting it wrong sometimes. Like when you get an energy feeling, you're like, I think his name is Trevor. It's not right. That's part of how your brain is going, okay, that frequency doesn't mean Trevor. It means something else. So we have to literally train our brain to become more accurate. So these are a lot of the illusions that I think is super helpful for people to let go of, that you're going to be perfect. It's this omnipotent gift, but you really are like the same if you're learning to play the piano. You're going to hit wrong notes until you're hitting the right notes more consistently.
Yeah, Donna, she's just amazing. Does she not know how to say everything?
Yeah, completely. I mean, this is wonderful. It's both instructive and also very resonant.
Yeah.
With, my own past experiences, but it's also really, really instructive because I'm hearing,
but it's really good at she's good at articulating it to where you understand it.
Oh, thank you.
You have questions for her, Donna?
Well, all I know is there was going to be a story, and I want to hear that story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess this lends itself into, again, what are psychic abilities? What is multidimensionality? How are we, our brain, our system, 3D system creates the separation where we, like I'm experiencing myself as Georgia right now, Lisa's Lisa, Donna's Donna, whoever's watching this is experiencing yourself in the singular egoic identity, right? Identity, personality. But all of that is a construct. And as we dissolve the veils of separation, we come into more union with everything, which is why, again, coming back to that idea, if you're around someone who's super psychic, if you soften your egoic resistance, you can really download those codes directly from that person, like a program file, and become more like that through resonance. And that, like the wildest experience I have had, people, as they're starting to dissolve those veils of separation, things like synchronicities start to happen more, knowingness, divine timing. It's because those veils of the illusion of time and space and separation are starting to dissolve. We have these more synchronized points of understanding. And the wildest story I have of that is somebody who saw I was on the show, maybe I just said this, Interviews with Extra Dimensionals, and someone saw this show and booked a session with me, and we started talking after the show because I really love Canadian rock. Like, who loves Canadian rock? Like, it's such a random.
There was such a thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, really into Canadian rock, like in the 90s and 2000s. And this guy happened to be like a Canadian rock star at some point. So my favorite artist is this Canadian, at the time, was this Canadian musician. I was like, oh, do you know this guy, Matthew Good? And he was like, he's one of my greatest. I don't know anyone else who knows Matthew Good, right? And he was like, he's one of my greatest musical inspirations. So we started talking, and I know so much about Canadian rock. It was amazing to me. I didn't know who this guy was because he was like at the time like an back in the day, award-winning Canadian artist. But he'd worked with a lot of the artists that I from Korea. By the way, I'm living in Hawaii at this time, right? So it's even more random. Anyway, we started kind of having a conversation, and the unfolding of synchronicities between this person and I was so absolutely mind-boggling, because I would have dreams, and I had dreamt about him a couple of days before he had the session with me, and I would have dreams that would take me back. So I had a dream that he was there with me in Hollywood, and it triggered me to go and look at a lot of scripts that I had written when I was living in Hollywood that I'd kind of forgotten about. And I pulled out these scripts, and his name was in all of these scripts that I had written. There were musicians in all of these scripts that I had written. There was what he was kind of going through at the time was written as the symptoms of these characters that I had written in these scripts. And literally, like, he was living it with his parents at the time. Like, I had a script where there was a musician living in the house that his parents owned at the time, but they all had his name in them. It was just wild. So then we started like, this is getting a little bit crazy. Like, not only is there the Canadian rock, not only have you worked with all these musicians that I knew of and that I was a fan of, then I had also written like a treatment for a TV show, because I thought it would be really cool to do energy work with bands, right? I'd written a treatment for this show called The Band Whisperer, and I pulled out that treatment, and I ended up pulling out this artwork a friend of mine had made for like a website. And it's like a picture of me with these like angel wings behind me, which I wasn't particularly that into angels, but this guy really is. I sent him the logo for The Band Whisperer, and he said, that is actually my band's logo. It was the same angel wings with the same spray.
That's crazy. You never do that. So that's you never did that. So
I never did it. I went on and on. And then we also figured out that when he made his first two albums, we were living in close vicinity to each other, San Diego and LA. And the last album he released, we figured out that he was mixing that album on my street in New York City and walking past my house every day in New York to go to the mixing studio. And that's like the last album he released. And then I moved to Hawaii. Anyway, long story, but it was just like
so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just remarkable.
Insane. And I could drop into his consciousness, and and he had music videos with these figures.
I think that happened. I think I know why. I think I know why that happened. I think it was the spirit of Canadian rock wanting you to know that I existed.
Totally. It was all laid out.
Rush is a great Canadian band. Rush is a Canadian band, right? Rush?
Yes.
Canada.
We'll still get doozies because we're friends, and we talk all the time. We do this kind of spiritual work together, like planetary healing stuff.
I've met like all my spiritual friends through the podcast, like coworkers like Dona, and that's been a great way to meet people doing this podcast. I've made so many friends from all over, and I get to learn about how they do their energy work, like with Dona. She does.
And what starts happening when you really start to thin the veils, it's not just psychic abilities anymore. It's a new state, a way of experiencing life.
It is a new way of experiencing life. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what we're moving into. Because I always say, like, if someone's grandma's here, right, and you're getting the same messages that I'm getting from that grandma, now we're in a three-way conversation with someone in the other dimension now, and we usually at this stage in the past we just haven't had that clarity of communication.
I haven't. And you know, for as a medium, the clarity is getting stronger and stronger as like the last year or 2 years. And it's
Totally.
because of my situation. It's happening for everybody I know who works with energy. It seems like their skills are getting more enhanced lately.
More enhanced, totally. Yeah, because it's where we're going.
Have you guys seen that lately with people like seeming to be what they usually do? They're stronger or fit faster or something.
Yeah. It's a point that we're dissolving so much more of that the illusion of time and space, the veils of separation, that it's just turning into a coherence. Like it's a knowingness, it's isness, basically.
And it is great to experience life from this perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just like happy. It's a happy way to live, like reading about
through the chaos of your mind trying to figure out WTF's going on.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Georgia. Oh, you look like you had something to say.
Because I know you said you wanted like a piece of advice, and a very important piece of advice I would give to people who want to open up energetically is to open up energetically through the heart center and not through the mind. And there's a reason for that, is that as you start to thin the veils, energy starts to speed up. So it will also start to amplify the illusions of the minds. And a lot of times people have rapid openings. They're still processing energy through their mind, which includes that illusion, the illusion of polarity, which is black, white, good, bad, true, false. So as energy speeds up and people are opening up rapidly, they can really also start to create some really spooky situations for themselves where it feels like that angels and demons thing is going on. It's just because the mind illusion is now getting amplified into the multidimensional space. And if you want to bypass all that shenanigans, learn how to focus your energy through the heart, because the heart does not have the imprint of the egoic mind. You'll also get much truer readings as well that won't be influenced by your own filters or the egoic filters of whoever you're working with or reading with. So heart centering is super important when you open up, and it's going to become more and more and more and more important as energy is speeding up as it is right now.
Really good advice. Listeners and watchers, if you don't know what she means by that, it's kind of like kind of sink all your energy and focus and attention into your heart center.
Yeah, drop it out of here. Just
don't think and talk.
Yeah.
You have all your attention like right in this area is what kind of if you're not watching, I had
a little hot energy right now to you all.
Yeah. And where can the listeners and watchers find out more about you, Georgia? Do you have a website, or are you doing anything?
Yes. There's two. My website for my work is circleevolution.com, and that's all this. I have all university of trainings, including a boot camp called Moving Onto the 5D Grid, which is all about opening up energetically and how to train your nervous system and your pineal gland, everything. It's more fun.
I just looked at your website today about a few hours ago before the podcast recording. And I'm just like, guys, like she's got so much cool stuff on this website. And now that I've heard you talk about it, it all makes much more sense.
Yes. Yeah. And this has all been distilled from 20 years of channeling and getting all this information from the broader consciousness that works through us. And another great resource is our podcast, Spread Your Third Eye. One of my clients is just like a super fan of the work we did. And so she wanted to make a podcast and have us come on. And I do a lot of channeling on that. And we talk about a lot of this stuff as well. So if people want to get on board with that one and it's a free one. Get to know my guides, and we break a lot of stuff down on that as well. Yeah. So circleevolution.com, Instagram, YouTube, all that, and then Spread Your Third Eye podcast.
Okay, I'll put that information in the description, listeners and watchers. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Everclear. Everclear is an advice app and website where you can get advice from psychics and empaths so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And Donna and I are both advisors on Everclear. And I am Lisa Russick on everclear.com. And you are Maria M. And anything else you have for the listeners and watchers? Anything else? Anybody want to say anything else? I'm kind of confused because we went in a different direction than we usually go.
Well,
Say goodbye, listeners. Oh, you have more? You got
I
more?
have another thing.
Yes.
I would like to share because this is a little bit, it's kind of simple but profound at the same time. The other thing that is very, very important for all of this work as we're opening up energetically and also trying to create a new paradigm for humanity is that we need to learn how to surrender and to actually drop the idea that we know what's going on. And that's part of the heart centering. When we drop into a heart, we're creating a state of surrender. It's basically saying, I actually don't know how to create my own next level of consciousness because I only know how to create the level of consciousness I'm already at. So, in order to get to my next level of consciousness, which could include developing psychic abilities, I need to actually surrender and say, I don't know. And that's go into your heart and say, okay, I surrender and I'm giving it over to my heart and the heart blueprint within my heart to take me to the next level because our minds only know how to create what they know. And if we want to break patterns and cycles and restrictions and blockages, we actually have to go, oh, this piece of brain mechanism doesn't actually know. So I'm going to surrender. And sometimes surrendering is just going into the heart. Sometimes surrendering is actually opening up and receiving mentorship from somebody else or help from somebody else, from your broader consciousness, from your spirit guides. So if you're really stuck somewhere in your life right now, try going into your heart and surrendering and letting something bigger work through you or for you, around you, or with you.
I'm going to do that because I'm stuck right now. So I'm doing that.
Surrender.
I'm just stuck in general. Thank you so much. And it's been a great podcast, Georgia. I'm really glad you came on. And thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. This has been really, really wonderful. It's been a great experience. Like I said, great information. A lot of takeaway, a lot of things that I know to be true, but hearing, it's always wonderful, I think, when you hear that come back to you from another person's perspective, from another person's experience.
Yes.
And again, so perfectly articulated, but just the fact that that exchange happens, that's another form of, whether you want to call it affirmation, confirmation.
Yes.
And it's a real enhancement, because often this can feel like some pretty lonely work.
It can. Oh, actually, I've got one more thing, if you wouldn't mind me plugging.
One more thing.
One more thing. Speaking of lonely work, I think a lot of people have been in a lot of spiritual isolation, and there is actually a purpose for that because it helps reduce the amount of stimulation that we've got going on, which allows to pick up on these high frequencies and signals. But at the same time, it's really amazing to gather with other people in a Vortex Live. And I don't do tons of live events, but I am going to be doing this event called the Channel Panel in West Virginia. And there's going to be a lot of, like if you read, your viewers have heard of Bashar, Wendy Kennedy, anyone who's watched interviews with extra dimensionals, it's going to be a whole bunch of channelers, huge energetic vortex that will be opening up, and everybody's teaching different workshops about this stuff. So that would be my final thing to plug. Channel panel coming up. It's on my website. But I'm excited.
That sounds fun.
Huge. Yeah. West Virginia in November.
Hey, you guys got to go. All of you. All of you must go. And with that, we love you. Do you love the listeners and the watchers, Georgia? Do you love them?
What's that? We love them. I love it. I can feel it pumping through.
The watchers. Donna, do you love the listeners and the watchers?
I absolutely love our listeners and watchers.
Okay, we love you guys and have a great time wherever you may be. Peace out. Bye.